So this administration has done more than any, and it just shows how this is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party. For now, they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases. They care about trying to score political points against President Trump, as we have, of course, seen with this government shutdown.
So it's another day on planet Earth, and I hope you know what that means. It means we have yet another quote-unquote Jeffrey Epstein bombshell from the House Oversight Democrats that is completely falling flat on its face, actually making Trump look good in the process and receiving massive ridicule and backlash because of it. Now, it was just yesterday that we talked about the first three selectively out-of-context emails that House Democrats tried to release from Jeffrey Epstein that mentioned Donald Trump, that if you read them completely out of context, might make Trump look kind of bad. But of course, we explained the context, first and foremost, about how the victim's name that was redacted in those files was actually Virginia Giuffre. And why did Democrats cover up her name? Because that was one of the top Epstein victims and accusers throughout the years, and yet repeatedly in sworn court testimony and in public, she reiterated that Trump never had sex with her, never flirted with her, was actually extremely friendly towards her, and never accused him of wrongdoing, despite being asked about Trump many different times. So you can tell, right, why the Democrats might redact that and make it look like, oh, Trump raped Virginia Giuffre, when it's publicly known that's not the case. Of course, there's other emails where actually Jeffrey Epstein says that Trump asked Ghislaine to stop, and it's like, that's supposed to make Trump look bad, that he was trying to shut this down. And then the last one includes him and Michael Wolff, that being Jeffrey Epstein, talking about how to try to blackmail Trump from not winning the presidency because they were that scared Trump might go after him, right? So time and time again, you're actually seeing that the Democrats completely fell flat on their face, but apparently that was not enough. And so today we have some brand new emails that are making some ridiculous claims, such as while Trump was president, he was meeting with Jeffrey Epstein despite no actual evidence to corroborate this. And a second one here where Jeffrey Epstein is essentially calling Trump a very bad person, one of the worst people he's ever known. And Democrats are trying to run with that, saying, look, Jeffrey Epstein said that Trump is a bad person. And we'll get into it, but it's like, first and foremost, oh, so you mean one of the most evil people on the planet doesn't like Donald Trump? Is that not proof that Trump is a good guy, right? If this is who Democrats are siding with, they're siding with Jeffrey Epstein. So it's utterly ridiculous. And that is, of course, the very reason why as many Democrats tried to do their victory lap on CNN yesterday and today to say, hey, look, we exposed the Trump-Epstein connection. They're getting absolutely torn apart and embarrassed over it. And you're already starting to see the signs that this issue politically is backfiring actually for the Democrats. Now the shoe's on the other foot, right? For months, this was an issue that made the Trump administration look bad. But now that Democrats are like, okay, he must be hiding things because he's in the files. Okay, so they find him in the files and everything in the files is exonerating him, right? If this is the best they have, it's like, come on now. So we'll get into it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's not only the best way to support our work, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of our latest videos. And that said, okay, so let's look at the first Democrat email leak here. And I again repeat, what have Democrats been saying for months? Release the files, release them all, right? And yet now that they subpoenaed these files, they're not releasing them all. They're just selectively they're basically doing a word search in it, right? Which ones include Trump? Oh, that might look bad out of context. Okay, release it right without the context. And, but of course, we know this was always disingenuous from them. All they're doing is playing political games. As serious as the Epstein issue is, it is rapidly becoming also an unserious political issue because of all the hijinks and shenanigans. It's becoming basically like a QAnon, Russiagate style thing at this point, a Democrat hoax, essentially. And that's why Trump is calling it a Democrat hoax, just to be clear to people, right? It's not because what happened was a hoax. It's because the way that they're spinning it, right? The way they're trying to frame it to people, that is the hoax. And we'll show you that again. So here you go. All right, documents. This is according to the Democrats. Documents show that Donald Trump spent Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein in 2017. At the time, Trump was already president and Epstein was already a convicted sex offender. Now, already, that doesn't sound so believable, does it? Like, okay, we could understand Thanksgiving, say, before he was president or something like that. In 2017, after they already had a falling out. By the way, after Jeffrey Epstein is already basically talking about in some of the emails that Democrats have released how much he hates Donald Trump. They're there buddy together while Trump is like the president, right? It doesn't really make sense. So we'll read for you, though, what Jeffrey Epstein here is essentially saying. So he's writing here to someone by the name of Faith Cates, okay? So it's like, hope today is fun for you. Fun. When are you back in New York City? This is Jeffrey Epstein. He responds, all next week. Okay, so Dylan and I want to see you, whoever this is. Here's highlighted. Where are you having Thanksgiving? Jeffrey Epstein responds, Ava, which I assume is his place in West Palm Beach. Someone can correct me on that, right? And then Kate here, Faith Cates here responds, that means Glenn, check out his red hair, whatever that means. Barry's color for holiday. I don't know what they're talking about here. But anyways, here's where it gets interesting. Faith Cates asks, he's such a snooze. Who else is down there? The response here from Jeffrey Epstein, David Fiddle, Hansen, and Trump. And then it concludes here, have fun. So again, this is the Democrats' big bombshell. Jeffrey Epstein said in a email to someone else, Trump is at my Thanksgiving party. So therefore, that's proof that Trump is at my Thanksgiving party, right? Democrats seem to apparently think that despite all of Epstein's constant terrible things he did out in his life, that he's a perpetual truth teller all of a sudden, right? And I think it's worth noting as well, just as we pointed out yesterday when Epstein was running around telling everyone that Trump was a good friend of his, even after they had a falling out, was of course the fact that like Epstein is this wannabe like big shot rich guy. He's trying to display power to people. Yeah, of course he's gonna lie. Of course he's going to talk up maybe the relationship he has with people in order to make it seem like he's someone important or leverage or flex power or something like that. So, I don't really, first of all, just buy the fact that, he said it in an email and he could have been intentionally misleading because they're just both in Palm Beach. And that's why he's trying to say that Trump is there, or it could even reference Trump's in Palm Beach. So it's like, okay, I don't know if I believe that on the surface, but here's the thing that's important, right? That's just me maybe playing denial. Here's the actual kind of documented story of where Trump was on November 23rd, 2017, according to, first of all, the publicly recorded events. So it's well documented, by the way. He spent Thanksgiving at Mar-a-Lago, right? Now, Epstein is claiming he spent it at Ava, whatever that is. I'm assuming that's his personal estate. And yet Trump the entire day is at Mar-a-Lago, right? So 9:06 a.m. Eastern time, he's at Mar-a-Lago and Club and Resort here. He was delivering remarks via video teleconference that day. Then he goes to the U.S. Coast Guard station in Rivera Beach, Florida. Later in the afternoon, he went to the Trump International Golf Club. And then Thanksgiving, he went back to Mar-a-Lago. So how could he have been at Jeffrey Epstein's Thanksgiving party if he's at Mar-a-Lago? Now, some people might say, maybe it was a secret meeting or appearance or something like that. Okay. But first of all, with all of the coverage on Trump while he's the president, it's not like he's the former president or someone else at this point. He's the current president. The Secret Service detail moving to Jeffrey Epstein's house would not have been news at the time. No one would have raised eyebrows. And here's my second thing, right? This is the first time we're hearing about this, despite all of the constant leaking, betrayal, the Bob Woodward book, all of the former Trump administration officials back then who had a falling out, especially in 2017, and went on to try to write every bad thing he ever said. And you have the Atlantic magazine, all the hit jobs that they wrote and all this stuff, all of that throughout the years. And yet not one former Trump official ever claimed that he went to Jeffrey Epstein's house on Thanksgiving. The public reports do not show that he went to Jeffrey Epstein's house on Thanksgiving. The only person who's ever said that in the history of ever is, of course, Jeffrey Epstein in a non-binding, this is not like a legal testimony, right? Just some email where he's trying to talk himself up or something, where he lists Trump's name. And the Democrats are responding by saying, clearly Jeffrey Epstein with no corroborating sources must be a reliable, source of information. That's just completely ridiculous. Of course he's not, right? That's just ridiculous. But anyways, that's the first email they're trying to convince us of, is while he was president, he was taking secret trips without even Secret Service knowing to Jeffrey Epstein's estate. Again, just don't really buy that. But of course, here's the second one, right? So from the Democrats, newly released emails show Jeffrey Epstein thought Trump was one of the worst people he knew with, quote, not one decent cell in his body. He then went on to describe Trump in one word, quote, dangerous. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that actually very similar to how the Democrats talk about Trump, right? This is their bombshell, guys. Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted child predator and sex offender, like one of the worst people in modern history, clearly, his opinion on Trump matters and we should back it up, right? This is what the Democrats are doing now. They're rallying. We believe Epstein. We're on the side of Epstein. What are you talking about? But anyways, here's what the email says, okay? So they're having this conversation here about, Trump's attitude towards women or something like that, which is very ironic for Epstein to be talking about. But anyways, here's the highlighted part from Jeffrey Epstein. Recall that I've told you, I have met some very bad people. None as bad as Trump. Not one decent cell in his body, so yes, dangerous. This is, of course, sent in February 2017. Yes, 2017, once he's become the president. Some of you may remember, by the way, despite all of the talk about this or that, it was Trump's administration that ultimately took down Epstein, right, through the FBI and all that. And here you see a guy repeating the rhetoric, right? Jeffrey Epstein repeating the rhetoric of the Democrats at the time. And the Democrats are like, yes, I guess the Trump supporters from back then were right? Democrats always have been on the side of Epstein because this is what they're using as the argument. No, actually, if one of the worst people says that the guy I like or support for president is a bad person, that doesn't convince me that the guy I like for president is a bad person. That convinces me he's a good person, right? It's like if Joseph Stalin, does not like a guy who was trying to fight for anti-communism in the Soviet Union, then, and he says that's one of the worst people ever, then I would say, oh, the anti-communist is probably a good guy because Stalin is a freaking maniac. That's just one example. You could pick out a lot of others. this is what the Democrats are trying to convince us of, guys. Utterly insane. So just to repeat again thus far, they did the emails with Virginia where her name is redacted because if you, open up her name, which was not originally redacted, according to at least House Republicans and the White House, because if you unredact the name and you search her up, you'd find out, oh, that's the victim that repeatedly said in public that Trump never did anything wrong with her, right? And then we had Epstein and respected liberal anti-Trump journalist Michael Wolff colluding together years ago to try to figure out how to take down Trump. It's like, okay, so Jeffrey Epstein wanted to blackmail and take down Trump just like the Democrats. Like, that makes me so shocked, obviously, right? And now we have Epstein saying Trump is a really bad guy, much like the Democrats again. And, some unproven allegation that while he was president, he was at Epstein's house during Thanksgiving, despite public reports. Well, Jasmine Crockett and other Democrats have responded by trying to do this little media tour on CNN where they're going to say, oh, look, we released the files. We're doing amazing. And, frankly, as I said, the shoe's on the other foot because this is basically going for them exactly how it went for Pam Bondi when she said that the files are on my desk. So take a listen to what happens when Crockett tries to, go on CNN and celebrate what Democrats did here when in reality, it's a big hoax.
This is an email from April 2nd, 2011. Republicans are saying that victim is Virginia Giuffre. As you know, she died by suicide. She's been very outspoken victim of Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the email right here on your screen. She wrote a book, as you know, and she did not accuse him of any wrongdoing. What do you make of that? And can you confirm that?
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it's redacted who the victim is, so I won't necessarily take the Republicans' word on who it is that's redacted. And I don't know why they would necessarily redact someone's name who is deceased at this point.
The Democrats did that, though. The Democrats redacted.
No. I understand, okay, but I'm just saying, our biggest concern is to actually make sure that we are protecting victims. And obviously, she wrote a book. She told her truth.
Okay, well, first of all, they say they want to protect the identities of the victims. Isn't that exactly what the DOJ said? And of course, the Democrats attacked the Trump administration and said, oh, they're covering it up. Now you're doing the same exact thing. And you wonder why people are pressing you on it. You wonder why they're grilling you. And notice how much Jasmine Crockett folds under hard questions where she can't just say, Donald Trump was with Epstein. Yeah, no, that's not the case. And by the way, as I pointed out, because we did this in yesterday's video, even before you reveal the identity of Virginia, you can just read those emails in context, and they still, even not knowing the victim, seem to show actually Trump's innocence. What Epstein, for instance, was complaining about in that first email, where they're saying Trump is the dog that hasn't barked yet, is that Epstein is basically fuming that there's been no mention by Virginia, his accuser, who's going to the authorities right now. He mentions the police chief, authorities, etc., right? That Virginia has never brought up Trump's name to the authorities, right? That's what Epstein is fuming about, because you know, she's accusing Epstein, she's accusing all these other people of these sex crimes, but never mentions Trump. Epstein is like, why is Trump not involved? Well, of course, right? When you read Virginia's testimony and her book and all these things and what she said, you know, always stood true throughout the years, right? Is that Trump never did anything wrong with me. That's what that email is saying, you know? And you can kind of deduce that even without knowing that the victim is Virginia. So that's why I say the Democrats are basically just relying on the stupidity of the voters, right? They're hoping the voters are so low IQ and they just read headlines that, you know, surely, you know, no one would ever ask secondary questions about what's being said, of course, in these very emails. And here's another one. So we have this Democrat right here, Representative Melanie Stansbury, tries to play absolutely clueless after, you know, getting cornered with the actual details on the Epstein files. So take a listen.
Thank you so much for being with us. What are you taking from these emails?
Yeah, I mean, these emails are clearly extraordinarily explosive. They implicate the president, that he not only knew what was happening in Jeffrey Epstein's circle, but that he spent time with...
And literally asked Ghislaine Maxwell to stop, according to Jeffrey Epstein, so...
with at least one, if not multiple, of Jeffrey Epstein's named sex victims, as well as there's discussion in the email that you just cited between Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein about the fact that he had been the dog that didn't bark, and they specifically are talking about the police. So what this implicates is that potentially going back all the way to 2011, even after Jeffrey Epstein had been investigated for criminal activity, not just in sex trafficking, but also for financial crimes, which we know U.S. Attorney Acosta lied under his deposition about, that Donald Trump was being named by Epstein and by Ghislaine Maxwell as being the dog that didn't bark on them. And so the question is, what did Donald Trump have on them? Was he engaged in these activities? And why is Donald Trump calling Republican members of the House today and yesterday to threaten them to get off of the discharge petition? If he thinks that we should be focused on the reopening the government, then why is he personally calling Republicans and threatening them right now?
So help us understand this, because Democrats redacted Virginia Giuffre's name. And I mean, I have to say, these emails...
it came to us redacted. No, it came to us redacted.
It came to you redacted. Okay.
Yes, so we don't even know. That is the claim of the White House. So that's something that we should be asking questions about. Yes. Okay,
really interesting. So, and House Republicans came out and mentioned the redaction there. It is of significance that Virginia Giuffre, who was so vocal, right, and was not known for pulling any punches about what happened to her, did not accuse Trump of wrongdoing. And so I want to know kind of what you think of that, because there is this discrepancy. You have Epstein saying this in an email to Maxwell. Maxwell, you know, we know about her in terms of her credibility. She doesn't really have credibility, right, when it comes to being honest.
Neither does Jeffrey Epstein, by the way, but apparently Democrats are using him as the grand source on even not just like the legal case or documented timestamps of, oh, he came to visit me or something. Apparently he's also the moral authority, right? When he says Trump is a bad person, Jeffrey Epstein is their moral authority. They literally just said that today. So
I'd say people have the same questions about Epstein. Giuffre has said that there wasn't she hasn't claimed wrongdoing with Trump. So how do you kind of square what you're reading in the email with what Virginia Giuffre had said publicly?
Well, first of all, like I just mentioned, we don't know if the White House's claim that that redacted name actually is Virginia Giuffre. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I think it's convenient that the White House is trying to choose an alibi that they think And, you know, if you read the email, this is private correspondence between Maxwell and Epstein. Why does the White House know at all who Donald Trump was hanging out with at Jeffrey Epstein's house, who was one of the sex trafficking accusers, right? Like, this should be raising...
Because the emails came from the DOJ, so that's how they know. Okay, I was about to say a cuss word, honestly, but you're idiot, okay? Idiot.
Every hair on the back of your neck right now. We don't even know that that is who is named in this email. Secondly, whether or not Virginia Giuffre has accused the president of wrongdoing, what I'd like to say to the American people is believe your eyes. We have all seen the photographs of Donald Trump with underage girls sitting on his lap. We know that he was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for more than a decade. We know that he has not complied with our congressional subpoena of the DOJ files, and we know that he is named multiple times in those files. So believe your eyes, believe your ears. And my question is, if they were not engaged in an elaborate smokescreen and cover-up, then why the hell is the president calling and threatening members of Congress for them to not take a vote on releasing these files after these files have already been subpoenaed? They are trying to bury this, and the president is personally trying to stop Congress from asking for these files again.
Okay, so literally the argument is don't believe the evidence. Like, don't believe the actual files. Believe your eyes. In other words, what are Democrats admitting to? It's a hoax, right? They're just trying to tie, oh, look at this email out of context. Look at Donald Trump and Epstein together. Don't you totally believe there was a thing there? So don't believe the evidence. Don't actually read what's in the files. Don't actually, prove anything. Just believe your eyes. Yeah. Great case they're making here, guys. And she just said that. She just said that.
I do want to ask you about that, because it is unusual that Lauren Boebert is there for this meeting. But first, just to really zoom in on this redacted name here. So are you of the belief that the victim that Epstein is alleging Trump spent time with at his house is someone besides Virginia Giuffre, or could be someone besides Virginia Giuffre?
I do not have information that would allow me to answer that question. What I know is that we've received 23,000 documents from the Jeffrey Epstein estate, including this email.
Okay, but then let me zero in on this real quick. Can I just ask you this? So you do not have knowledge that tells you that is Virginia Giuffre?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so explain this again to us. You received this, and it is redacted. There is no name. And so you're saying it's the White House that's saying this is Giuffre.
Yes.
And what kind of questions does that raise for you?
Well, as I said, first and foremost, we have subpoenaed these files from the White House, from the Department of Justice. We have subpoenaed financial documents. We have subpoenaed the estate. And thus far, Donald Trump and the White House have refused to disclose the DOJ documents that are clear on what the FBI investigated, who was facing potential criminal charges, who was implicated, why the president is named in those files. So we don't know what is in the White House, DOJ, FBI files. But what we do know is that the estate has been producing documents in tranches, and they have been redacting those documents as they have been sent to the committee. I have not reviewed the original transmittal that came from the estate, but my understanding is that in that 23,000 page document production that happened over the weekend, that there were redactions produced by the estate. And so it is my understanding that it is the...
So, okay, blah, 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 blah. In other words, you don't know what you're talking about. They've admitted essentially they're taking this all out of context and they're just trying to release emails again, completely not having the full details or the full context that just make it look like they sound bad. And then the argument from Democrats is just believe your eyes, guys. We keep posting this picture of Trump with Epstein. Just believe it. Don't ask for proof. Don't ask for evidence. Because this is the entire Democrat case, and this is what their grandstanding over the Epstein files has been all about. And so really, to answer her question on this, why is Trump, for instance, not really a fan of releasing these things? I will say this, right? I think the way the Trump administration has handled the Epstein files was absolutely a mistake. But I think what's going through, especially Trump's head, is that, he and the White House know that if you, for instance, put these emails out public, what the Democrats are going to do with it. Because you just saw what the Democrats did with it, right? They're just going to butcher things. They're just going to take everything out of context, whatever. And I will say, I think that's a miscalculation, though, because at the same time, right, first of all, we want transparency. But secondly, if you released it yourself and said, look, here's the full context, we have nothing to hide, you could get out ahead of the issue first before the Democrats basically now have the files and are just going to selectively release whatever mentions Trump out of context, right? Which is exactly what they're doing now. So again, I understand the logic that they were employing here. I never thought it was because, Trump, the files say that Trump raped a kid or something. No, I thought it was exactly because of this, because, they knew the Democrats would take it out of context. But again, that still, in my opinion, was a miscalculation, because now what are the Democrats doing that they have the files? Even more dishonestly, right? Even more selectively releasing these things out of context when, again, you could have gotten out ahead of it. But, at this point, it is what it is, okay? Of course, we are seeing the media, for instance, at the same time try to say that, take a listen here actually to Harry Jensen's explanation of how the Epstein issue is polling among the Republicans.
But I can tell you that the more that this case is in the news, the worse it is for Donald Trump, because simply put, it is his worst issue by far.
Right. So this is the political strategy case that Democrats are trying to make at the moment. Trump is super unpopular on the Epstein issue, therefore we should keep hammering it. Except the problem is he's not going to be unpopular on it for long if you keep playing these games, right? If you keep releasing stuff that makes him look good. Actually, now you're going to end up in like the Black Widow spider web trap of this Epstein issue, because now, right, everything that the DOJ and Pam Bondi and all the people in the administration got clowned for when it came to Epstein, that's now all happening to the Democrats. Oh, we have a bombshell. Oh, it's not a bombshell. Oh, we're going to go transparency, release them all, and then you're not releasing them all. Right? So they're actually making the same exact mistake. They're completely overplaying their hand. Ironically, it's coming at a time when, ever since the elections, maybe you've noticed there's a lot of infighting on the right wing. And what are they doing now in the process? They're actually just uniting the Trump base by once again showing to us how dirty and dishonest the Democrat Party actually is. Now, next week, House Speaker Mike Johnson plans to do a House-wide vote, a contentious bill that would actually just release the full Epstein files. To which I say, it's going to be very telling if Democrats actually vote for this, right? Because I don't think they want to release the full Epstein files. I never did. They just want to find the ones, again, that maybe out of context might make Trump look bad and release those and say, look, believe your eyes, don't believe the evidence, as she literally said on camera. So, we'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, this thing is totally backfiring on Democrats, to make a long story short. Again, totally overplayed their hand. And, it's pretty rich to see. But all right, with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.